2025 was supposed to be the biggest year in FPS history. After more than a decade of Call of Duty versus Battlefield, this was meant to be the final showdown. One last war, one final winner. But of course, it wouldn't be that easy. Instead of one of the franchises coming out on top of the other, the entire war was stolen by someone else. Or rather, something else. This is the war that Battlefield lost. Battlefield has become one of the most iconic franchises in gaming. So much so that when you hear the word Battlefield, you probably think of the game and not an actual battlefield. How do you feel about that, Grandpa?
What'd you say?
I said that Over the years, Battlefield has had one hell of a journey. From a fresh face that everyone loved to the symbol of greed and bad decisions. Then to one of the biggest revivals in gaming, and then something so much worse. The history of Battlefield has been nothing short of pure chaos. In the future, might be even worse. But first, let's talk about how we got here. The franchise would officially debut in September of 2002 with Battlefield 1942, and quickly becoming a hit for its large-scale battles, teamwork, and infantry combat. By 2004, Battlefield 1942 would go to sell over 3 million copies, which is an insane number for the time. But more importantly, Battlefield 1942 created the classic formula that you know today. 64 players fighting across massive large-scale maps using different classes to win. A blueprint that's still being used today in games like Battlefield 2042, Delta Force, and Battlefield 6. Over the next few years, DICE kept building on that success with games like Battlefield 2, Bad Company, and one of my personal favorites, Battlefield 1943. These titles proved that EA and DICE could be trusted, at least for now, to deliver great war games, whether they were set in the future, modern times, or World War II. No matter the era the games were based in, they made it work. But this period was only the beginning, because what came next would make these games look like child's play. In 2010, the golden era of Battlefield would begin with Bad Company 2. Now, Bad Company 2 would be an absolute hit on launch, bringing in so many players from Call of Duty and other FPSs at the time. Now, this game did everything right for Battlefield, not just having tanks, rockets, and war, but some of the best destruction in the franchise's history, which could be seen as a bad thing because every building in a 20-mile radius would be sand by the time people got to B-Site, which I can't lie, it was insanely fun to destroy all the buildings until you realize you destroyed all the buildings and now you need cover. And now you're in the middle of a war zone with no cover. But for the time, the realism was on a whole nother level, and personally would be my favorite Battlefield to date. And not just for its spectacular multiplayer, but for its fantastic story. And for the people that actually played it, let me know down below if you agree, because I'm curious if anyone actually enjoyed this campaign. But yeah, we know Bad Company 2 was truly a great game, but it would somehow only be the first steps into the golden era of Battlefield. And that would be because in October of 2011, DICE would go on to release what is widely considered to be the best Battlefield to date. And this game would be, you guessed it, Battlefield 3. When Battlefield released, it would absolutely go to steal the show from Call of Duty with their release of Modern Warfare 3 that year. And would also go on to cement Battlefield as a mainstream franchise, selling over 5 million copies opening week and absolutely blowing everyone's expectations away with its unreal graphics at the time. Now, Battlefield 3 would be so huge at the time that it would inspire a group of YouTubers to create a series by the name of Battlefield Friends, which would only accelerate Battlefield 3's growth in the gaming scene and make it one of the most iconic games of all time. From the funniest moments to insane MLG shots to even Jeep stuff, this game would go down as one of the best Battlefields, if not the best. Now, over the years, BF3 would only get better and better, with more maps like Firestorm and Operation Metro and updates that would keep the game alive for years to come. And with talks of a sequel on the horizon, Battlefield fans were stoked and excited to see what EA had in store. After a consistent 2 years of Battlefield 3, DICE would go on to reveal the next chapter to the series with Battlefield 4, a game that today a lot of people love and hold as the best Battlefield. Now, a lot of people say this without even knowing the history of Battlefield 4. If you're not familiar, Battlefield 4 released in a terrible state. to put it lightly. From the game freezing, bad servers, consoles being hard locked completely, to players not even being able to finish a match. But I'll be damned if they didn't turn the ship around, because they fixed that game like an engineer repairing a tank. They took what could have been the worst game in the franchise all the way to the top and made it one of the best games in the series, and would also release so much content that people would still be playing it 13 years later. But boy oh boy, was EA not done yet, because following Battlefield 4, the next game we would get would be Battlefield 1. It was Battlefield 1. Now, DICE would go on to release an unexpected trailer for Battlefield 1 in May of 2016.
Battlefield 1? I thought we were on 4.
Anyways, this trailer would absolutely shake the gaming scene for not only going back to what Battlefield started as, but for having arguably the coolest trailer in all of gaming history. Every match you played, it felt like you were in a Michael Bay directed movie. And at the time, COD was getting so much backlash for their futuristic titles, so coming to play Battlefield 1 just felt that much better. The atmosphere and feel of this game was just something else. Even 10 years later, the visuals still look amazing, but like their previous games before it, another hit. DICE was eating up the fact that people actually were enjoying a World War I based game, so they decided to double it down with the Second World War.
Oh, what'd you say?
Oh shit. Nothing, Grandpa. Nothing. It was nothing. I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
Do it again. Now, EA would go on to double down with this World War idea with Battlefield 5. But unlike Battlefield 3, 4, and 1, this game would have a huge problem. In May of 2018, exactly 2 years after the announcement of Battlefield 1, DICE would officially announce the next title in the franchise. And this game would be the infamous Battlefield 5, which at launch would take a hit harder than 4 could have ever imagined. The trailer of Battlefield 5 depicted a girl with a prosthetic arm in the heat of World War II. And this would put the community in a blaze of fire, not because of sexism or anything, but because of historic accuracy. This would make the trailer one of the most disliked videos on YouTube, period. But this fire would only go to grow when one of the developers at DICE would go on record to say, "I knew this was going to be a fight when I pushed for female soldiers in Battlefield. I have a daughter and I don't want to ever have to answer her question of why can't I make a character that looks like me with because you're a girl. I fundamentally feel to my core that this is the right way. I will find myself on the right side of history, and I think many people will play the game despite their reservations, and maybe learn something about either history or themselves. This is a part of making games art." Now, this would only stir up the fire that was already caused from the trailer itself, because most fans weren't being sexist. They wanted the historic accuracy that Battlefield was selling to them. But the EA chief designer at the time, Patrick Soderlund, who, if you watched my previous video, you would know that he's actually the CEO of Embark, who created the Finals and Arc Raiders. Now, Patrick would go on record to say, "Anyone who is upset about how women are portrayed in Battlefield 5 are uneducated, and if you don't like it, don't buy it." This would go on to destroy Battlefield 5 sales and pre-orders immediately. But for the people who did buy it and play it, they would quickly come to find out that not just outside the game was a mess, the game was too. The lack of historic events made fans even question if the game was really a World War II based game. Updates and live service were also really weak, and because it was 2018, they also had to throw in a Battle Royale, which was also, you guessed it, weak. Most people that played Battlefield 5 would eventually burn out. Now, it wasn't a bad game by any means, but after the great post-content that Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1 received, it really felt like a letdown to the fans of the series. But a few years later in 2020, they would end up tweaking the time to kill in Battlefield 5 for maybe a chance that new players would stay when trying the game. But shocker, this would only go to upset the only remaining players left playing the game and would seal the coffin for Battlefield 5. While many players kept playing Battlefield 5, most had left to other games at the time, at least until a new Battlefield was announced, and soon that came to be. On June 9th of 2021, we would receive our first trailer for the new installment in the series, and this game would be the well-loved Battlefield 2042. I can't say that without a smile on my face. With the announcement of Battlefield 2042, fans of the series were very split. The game looked good at first, with a weather mechanic and also going back to a semi-modern era of Battlefield. The cool futuristic vehicles and the very unique maps at first glance made the game look very promising, but the truth would reveal itself when the game fully released. 2042 would launch in late 2021, and as expected, would be a hot, steamy pile of shit. Whether it was the lack of scoreboard at launch or the thousands of glitches that somehow got through EA's bug department, the lack of a proper class system was also a problem for most. But to make everything worse, bullets didn't want to work in this game either, just like Battlefield 4. But honestly, that was the tip of the iceberg, because the game itself felt clunky and unpolished, and most agreed that it just felt very rushed. The lack of features alone would push people away to never return. The Steam reviews came so fast that before you could get home from work to play the game, it would have been review bombed 10,000 times. After launch, the player counts would drop immensely, faster than any Battlefield before it. Lobbies on PC and console would also struggle to stay populated, and many fans returned to previous games like Battlefield 4. Now, DICE would try their best to fix 2042 to the best of their abilities, which wasn't too bad. There was a good amount of content added post-launch, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough to drag people back. In fact, it was so severe that EA had lost so much money that they had to do the unthinkable. But before I tell you, I gotta introduce you to someone. This is Vince Zampella. If you're not familiar with who this man is, I'm sure you're familiar with his games. Vince would begin his work in the gaming field in the late 90s with the gaming company Atari. He gained his first break as the lead designer on Medal of Honor. For those who don't know what Medal of Honor is, it was basically Call of Duty before Call of Duty. What's that? Oh, he made Call of Duty. Oh, look at that. After creating Medal of Honor, Vince would go on to co-create a company by the name of Infinity Ward. And Infinity Ward would go on to create the first Call of Duty. And then Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and lastly, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which is widely considered to be the best Call of Duty to date. After creating Modern Warfare 2, Vince would then be fired by Activision due to contract disputes. Classic Activision. So Vince took his business elsewhere. And what better place for the creator of Call of Duty to go than the creators of Battlefield? Yeah, crazy, right? When Battlefield hit rock bottom, EA didn't turn to DICE, they turned to their rival's greatest weapon. He would then found a division within EA by the name of Respawn Entertainment. You should know who these guys are. They're responsible for games like Titanfall 1 and 2, Apex Legends, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It really seemed like everything Vince touched turned to gold, and EA knew that, so they took advantage of it. So when Battlefield 2042 inevitably failed, they stole Vince from Respawn and moved him over to the head of Battlefield. Now, when Vince took over Battlefield, there was a huge shift within Battlefield's structure. Remember those good content updates for 2042 that came after its failure? Shocker, that was him. Instead of DICE making the games directly, they would be under a parent company by the name of Battlefield Studios. And with no time to spare, they would start cooking up their brand new game in the series. And this one could just save Battlefield forever. In the meantime, in 2023 and 2024, many Battlefield fans would take refuge at a brand new game at the time by the name of Delta Force. And Delta Force would explode within the Battlefield community for being everything Battlefield 2042 wanted to be but couldn't, bringing in large-scale battles with tanks and helicopters to occupy all 64 players, with squads joining other squads to aid their team to victory in the Conquest mode. Pretty much just Battlefield, but the kicker was, it was free, and still is. After the hell that was Battlefield 2042, many fans would never trust EA again, so they would never return to the franchise and would remain playing Delta Force over any Battlefield. I can only imagine this put a fire under Battlefield's ass to really give the fans what they want, and with all this success being given to almost a carbon copy of Battlefield, EA wasn't gonna let that slide, and neither was Vince. Early in the year of 2025, EA and DICE would start running closed playtests for a secret Battlefield game, letting internal teams and community testers try out early builds of this game. These playtests would be used as a way to test out the core systems like combat, destruction, and movement, and so they can listen and receive fans' critiques and criticisms. If you want to make a game for the fans, you gotta listen to them. And at the time, these playtests that were happening in the shadows would get leaked online. And this would spark up one hell of a conversation. After fans got their hands on these leaks, they were dumbfounded. The footage, it was good. All the leaks showed a modern Battlefield game. After 12 years of World War-based games or futuristic ones, we would finally get a return to this era that was Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Now, while these leaks were amazing to see, they were hard to see. EA was trying everything that they could to keep this game completely undercover. All leaks of this upcoming Battlefield game would immediately get taken down within hours or even minutes of being posted. But it wouldn't matter because soon after, an announcement would be made. July 24th of 2025. After almost 4 years with no new Battlefield game, the longest gap in the franchise's history, EA finally broke the silence. In the middle of summer, they revealed a new game, a trailer showing a return to the modern world, something that looked closer to Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 than we'd seen in over a decade. Fans were skeptical, and for good reason. After everything that had happened before, nobody trusted EA anymore. But that skepticism didn't last long, because just 2 weeks later, we got an open beta, and that beta would completely shift the tide of gaming forever. This was it. No more trailers, no more promises. This was truly the make or break for the company. The entire Battlefield franchise was resting on one game to win the community back. So, on August 7th of 2025, the fate of Battlefield would be decided. And when the servers finally went live, everything changed. Within minutes, the servers were flooded. Streamers, pros, casuals, old Battlefield veterans who hadn't touched the franchise in years, everyone showed up. Twitch was covered in Battlefield. Twitter was on fire. And for the first time in over a decade, Battlefield wasn't being mocked. It was being celebrated. Within minutes of the game's release, the servers would absolutely fill up like a Bonnie Blue playdate, with hundreds of thousands of players just sitting in the menu waiting to get in. Once in though, people would go absolutely feral. People were eating this game up. The community was quick to pick up on how similar it felt to Battlefield 3 and 4, with not just the visuals, but the gunplay and vehicles. And with the return of a more grounded destruction, it would truly feel like a classic Battlefield again. Battlefield 6's beta would hit a record-breaking 500,000 concurrent players on PC and a total of 20 million on all platforms. Within 24 hours, fans went from skeptical to completely ready to throw their credit card at EA. They did it. Battlefield was back, and Call of Duty fans, they were fed up. COD fans were tired of broken launches, tired of recycled content, tired of not being listened to, so when Battlefield finally gave something real again, COD fans showed up. Every major COD streamer jumped ship to try Battlefield 6, and let's just say, some of them never went back. For the first time in a decade, the war wasn't even close. Battlefield wasn't chasing Call of Duty anymore. Call of Duty was chasing Battlefield. Battlefield 6 would go on to sell over 7 million copies, raking in 500 million in just 3 days. Players were tuning in from around the globe to play this game. Over 700,000 on PC and millions on console at one time. Players were even playing the campaign, unfortunately. But with the new maps like Manhattan Bridge and Mirak Valley and classic returns like Firestorm, the game's release would be huge. Turns out listening to your fans actually does pay off. But all of the success that Battlefield has gotten would just add fuel to the Battlefield versus Call of Duty war. Shortly after the release of Battlefield 6, Call of Duty would release their beta for Black Ops 7, promising fixes and a removal of skill-based matchmaking after 6 long years of fans begging for it to be removed. Guess all it took was competition for Activision to listen. Oh, that was kind of fire. But COD fans were skeptical about these great changes, as they should be. It sounded too good to be true, and with the release of Black Ops 7, they were right. Activision would do a rug pull on everything that they said they would do at launch. Good thing no one bought BO7 though. But by the time Black Ops 7 released, it was already dead. When the game released in late November, the player count went up by a hair, unlike any Call of Duty before it. Even Call of Duties that were seen as really bad would still make a dent in the player count. Just comparing how many people were playing Black Ops 7 versus Battlefield 6 was night and day. You have Black Ops 7 that Activision rushed and only wanted to quote unquote listen to fans when times got desperate, versus a game, Battlefield, who actually took the community's criticism and applied it to make something the fans actually wanted. In the past, the scale weighing between COD or Battlefield used to always be equal, or lean towards COD, in terms of popularity at least. But in 2025, after decades of competition, Battlefield would finally tip that scale and would reign supreme over gaming. But this is it. Battlefield would finally win the war. Years and years upon decades, this was it. But something was wrong. Battlefield didn't win. So who did? After years upon years of consistent back and forth about which franchise was better, COD or Battlefield, always fighting to be the best and battling head to head year after year. This entire time, it wasn't about COD versus Battlefield. It was how long can they entertain us until the next big thing is here. First, it was Fortnite, stealing the show from Battlefield 5 and COD World War II. Now, it's ARC Raiders. This entire time, it wasn't about which game would be better, it was how long could they keep the throne warm until the next big game was here. Since the release of ARC Raiders in November of 2025, Battlefield 6 would go on to lose almost 93% of its player base in just short of 4 months. From 750,000 players on Steam to just 50,000, meaning even games like Delta Force would have more players concurrently than Battlefield has in months. This isn't to say that Delta Force is better by any means, but something had to have gone wrong within the post-content portion of Battlefield 6's lifespan. Even Call of Duty, which holds multiple games within one launcher, can only peak at 38,000 players on Steam. Now, where this really hurts Battlefield is during midnight hours. Most Battlefield players are within the age range of 28 to 45, meaning that at night they get off the game at a reasonable time. This would leave around 20,000 Steam players on the game worldwide. And if you know anything about Battlefield, you know you need 64 players to fill up a conquest match. And if there's not enough players, the servers get filled with AI. And obviously, this isn't fun for anyone playing at night. Even at night, Delta Force holds a concurrent 80,000 players, and ARC Raiders holds a steady 150,000. Now, it's hard to say why Battlefield has dropped in players recently. They did everything right? Now, it could have been the lack of consistent updates or maybe something deeper. But the truth is, the drop in players for Battlefield is not even remotely close to the tragedy that would strike on December 21st of 2025.
Heartbreak across the gaming community. A man who helped shape modern video games and influenced an entire generation is gone. Vince Zampella, the legendary co-creator of Call of Duty, killed in a deadly crash on a mountain highway in LA County.
After a fatal accident in California, Vince Zampella would unfortunately lose his life. The creator of Call of Duty, the savior of Battlefield, and a true gaming legend would be lost. It's hard to say where Battlefield and the gaming scene will go from here. After losing someone who created some of the most revolutionary franchises in gaming history, it's really hard to tell how this will affect everything. With Battlefield 6 being Vince's last project, I really don't want to see this game continue in this negative trajectory. Hopefully, EA can step in and keep this game going in honor of Vince. And hopefully his last game will prosper beyond anything he could have ever imagined. But with that being said, I don't want to end this video in a sad way, so remember to hop on Battlefield 6 and pay your respect to the gaming legend. And never forget the games that he has crafted for us. And lastly, let's all hope these games keep moving forward and keep growing so we can play without ever having to worry about those pesky AI filling up our fucking lobbies. But a quick note before I wrap up this video, I just want to give a big shout out to the people that have become a member in the past month through the YouTube membership. I just wanted to give a big thanks to the people supporting these videos because they are not easy at all to make. So once again, a big thank you to Elfman, Destroyer06, Big Blurb, Mr. Finnerty, and Posada Gaming for supporting the channel because they single-handedly just funded my new outro.